Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today. In case you're lost and not in the right place, or you don't know where you are right now, this is Socially Speaking, is family track, and we are talking about how children taught within the home education exceed expectations because of independent and self-direct learning, how research has proven and indicates that home-educated children can be well socialized and have a large network of friends, can be involved in many social and different diverse community activities, and how they're important in society, and families are raising and nurturing the next generation of citizenry. So we will discuss how parents can support their children's social development and encourage community involvement. And together with us, we have today not Gita Mateja, as in your programs maybe, but Alice Lutolf, who is a former or still homeschool student. And we also have Rosenrot Schulpke, yes, from Germany, and Godfrey Kyazee from Uganda. And soon we'll be also joined by Mateja, Laat from Slovenia, and Juliet English from the UK, who are currently giving another talk in another track that's going to be swiftly, so they're going to join us soon. So these are 5 speakers. We'll just jump into it, no more things to say, except that if you want to ask something, write down your questions so that you don't forget. With that, I'll invite Alicia to come over first.
So hi. For those who haven't read my bio, and listen, I'm Alicia. I'm 19, and I've been homeschooled almost my whole life. So, sociabilization is always the first question I get asked when talking about homeschooling. That's a fact. But what also is fact is that social life than most of the kids at school, and in particular teens nowadays. Confidence. That's where I want to start. So having confidence, more particularly self-confidence, is something that is built. How? By having undeniable proof that we are what we say we are. I'm not saying it is impossible to do that in school. What I'm saying here is that you have less chances to build that proof. Belief and confidence in your own ability and value. That's the definition of self-esteem. Now, how can you be confident about yourself and your ability if you don't even know them? Actually have the chance to find out who you are. I probably already lost half of the room, so I will give an example. When a kid is cooking, traveling, questioning, gardening, etc., actually homeschooling. Sorry, I lost it. He can see, okay, I have responsibility and I can trust myself. But if your boss, excuse me for the French, is 9 hours or 8 if you have 1 hour for lunch break in a chair, how are you supposed to find that you are actually super talented in wood sculpting or singing or whatever? As a parent, how can you encourage that for your kids? For me and my brothers, at least, what my parents did that really made a difference was to give us responsibilities. And also the right to sometimes fail. Because learning to get up from a fail is also part of the process. The second things that homeschoolers have for socialization that others don't, or at least have less, is time. So that's some pictures. time we get from not having to go at the speed of the slowest person in the classroom, but actually work and learn at our own rhythm. Also, travel time from home to school every day and wait in between classes because they have to change subject every 45 minutes. It may seem insignificant, but having time is actually the starting point of what we just discussed earlier. Studying is a couple hours a day takes me in primary school and maybe 4 or 5 at high school level. So yes, we have time. And adults now know times equal money. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, this time gives us especially the opportunity of doing activities and making friends. It doesn't really matter what the kid is choosing, sports, art, physics, all three of them. Having another adult of reference, having friends who have the same passion as you, going to the local youth council, debating with people who don't agree or don't have the same point of view, and getting involved for your city or country, being able to adapt and handle society, as they like to say, because you have time, confidence, and energy to do stuff. Art and sport were the two things that really stuck to me, but my parkour has permitted me to develop and not block my curiosity to learn new things, and by that meaning new people. So, my conclusion is, as a full-time homeschool kid with a lot of interest, my answer to those who said, but can you adapt to the difficulties of life and handle society, is yes, I can. And I'm not trying to be cocky or rude, but I can handle stuff better than most of the adults I know who have been in school. And I was vice president of my city council, taking and seeing country politicians or presidents almost every day, managing groups and more than 100 people, organizing camps for kids, doing different sport and activities in different places, from the skate park to the music conservatory or theater, through festival to raising awareness about mental health, where I was also a volunteer. Yes, I have friends. I had boyfriends too. I also went to parties and sometimes did stupid stuff that teenagers should do, like drifting in a parking lot in the middle of nowhere. But I trusted my parents. I had a framework and adults around me who I could turn to if necessary. And this confidence of, I should tell my parents, they would know what to do, instead of, oh my God, they have to never discover that, or I'm dead, is something that you, as a parent, have to leave the space for us, kids and teens, to build with you. And that means also trust us sometimes, so that we can trust ourselves and begin to trust you in return. I'm telling you that because this actual framework is the one that makes a difference when not forced to be on our breaks all day, contained all day, as kids are in school right now. We are actually able to appreciate going out to see people. If you were in a job, your colleague would bully you all day, or not even, just zero consideration. You would change job, right? Because I guess I'm not teaching you anything. Human is a naturally social animal, and we are meant to live in a community. But I think the real question now is not, are we in the community, but how and who we want to be inside this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. So we have a couple of minutes now to ask Alicia some questions. No, in the end? Okay. Then come here, Rosenrot from Germany.
Thank you. For some years now, I'm conducting a field research in the world schooling community. I did interviews with families who think about themselves as world schoolers. And I'm interested in what they think that is, this world schooling. For many families, world schooling has to do with traveling, often even long-time traveling, while providing an education to their children. But once I talked to a family who had a different perspective, and they said they were world schoolers without doing so much traveling. They said, people think that we are homeschoolers or a home education family because our kids are not in school. But actually, we are not so much at home. We are out. We are in the world. We do stuff with others. And the world is our classroom. I believe that it is important that we as parents who take the education of our children into our own hands free ourselves from the stigma that is attached to this life choice. That families who don't send their children to school must be socially isolated or simply isolate their children. There is this image of the child learning at home, sitting alone at their desk in their room and having to read through a pile of books because mom or dad told them to do so. But this is not the way free choice education has to look like. And here I avoid the term home education, not because home is an unpleasant place. It is beautiful to have a nice home and spending time there with our kids. But it's just not the whole picture of our life reality. There are many opportunities, many technologies and tools today, in social media, for example, that help us getting connected and spending time with like-minded people. But what I want to point out is that learning activities themselves can be designed in a way to help being involved in the community, being involved in the world. I work for the off-campus program of Clonlara School, and we approve personalized, self-directed learning activities. And often, just naturally, these are larger projects that cover different subject areas. And they can happen in many different environments and often lead directly into the heart of the community. I would like to give you an example of a girl that I met when I just started working for Clonlara many years ago. And it's often the first people we meet in a certain field that impress us the most. She was enrolled in our German program, and she did a lot of figure skating. And when she was working towards her high school diploma, she asked us to give her credit in physical fitness for this activity, what of course we did. But what the activity that she actually did was so much bigger than this. At a certain point, she developed the concept of creating children's birthday events on the ice, where the kids could dress up in costumes, have face paintings, and then would learn their first simple techniques on the ice. And all of a sudden, it's not only about the girl who loves figure skating, but it's also about sharing. It's also about others. It's also about the community. And I remember that the same girl got English as a foreign language credit because each year she helped organizing an annual baseball exchange with German and American teenagers and learned to speak English fluently this way. Because we as parents often still have the school conditioning in us. We often unconsciously make a distinction between the learning activity and the social activity. But we can learn to think differently, think bigger. Many valuable learning processes are hidden in everyday activities, and these are often inherently social. They happen in the world. In one of my interviews, a mother told me that she and her daughters love to cook together and with others. And the daughters, they have a favorite spice that is made out of dehydrated smoked bell peppers, and it's called pimentón de la vera. First of all, they learned a lot about the spice, and there is a lot that you can learn by studying a spice. For example, that Christopher Columbus first brought the bell peppers to Europe. They weren't here before. That the English name bell pepper has to do with another spice that was known at the time of Christopher Columbus, but it came from India. And trading this spice made people rich. It was black pepper. You can learn about trade routes and world trade from a spice. You can learn all of this at home. You can even learn all of this without ever tasting this spice. That's a little bit what happens in schools. But what that family did in the end was travel to Extremadura in Spain, where the spice is produced, and see everything for themselves there. Because the girls liked the spice so much. Being in the country, in this region, smelling the air, seeing the actual living oak trees whose branches are used to smoke the peppers to get this intense flavor, going where it happens, talking to people who would work there, who know all about this spice, be in the world, even learning some Spanish with this, learning it in the world. And when we as parents realize that, we realize as well that it's actually the traditional schools that are isolating our children, isolating them from us, from real life, and from being in the world. Children at school, they have no choice. But we as parents, when we take our children's education into our own hands, we do have that choice. And we can choose to make the whole world our classroom. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Godfrey Kyazee. I'm from Uganda, and I'm a homeschool dad out there. And that's my little family at the moment. If you choose to call them, you can call them my guinea pigs in this area of home education. Olga and I, we've been married 16 years, and those are the 4 children so far God has given us. They're between the ages of 6 and 15, and all of them have been homeschooled. Now, socially speaking, in Africa, we have a belief that the dead are not dead. And now, the dead being that they are not dead, that means they are still speaking to us. And one of those dead people that are still speaking to us is Socrates. So he's quoted here having said at one point that horses are born horses, but humans are not born humans. What does he mean? So what he's trying to drive at is that for human beings, we are born twice. We have this biological birth, but also we have what he calls a sociological birth. So when we talk about the sociological birth, is the kind which does not separate us more or less from animals. Just like the kittens or the puppies, that's the biological birth we receive. And from human beings, sometimes we are even, we are more helpless than even the animals can be. if you try to compare them, we cannot move on ourselves. We do stuff we may not want to talk about if we are just born. If it's just the biological birth, we pee where we are, we poo where we are until the parent comes in to help us. We cannot speak apart from the strange sounds that we can make. Now, when it comes to the sociological birth, it's like the kind of birth that makes us be the humans that we all want to be. So what is this sociological birth? Which in this session I want to refer to as socialization. One of the scholars, Theos, he defines socialization as the process in which the society's cultural heritage is transferred to individuals. Now, as we are looking at this, I want you to think about, where does this take place? Where can it happen? Is it more in a home context or in a conventional school context? Socialization being the process in which the society's cultural heritage is transferred to an individual. He continues to say it's the process by which the child develops their personality and learns to be human in one way or another. It is the process happens near the people with an important place in the life of the child, such as parents, siblings, grandparents, aunties, uncles, cousins, friends, and teachers. That's where socialization takes place. It is children are socialized by the society they live in as a whole. It is this process of socialization for a child that is referred to here as the sociological birth by Theo. So, it is the turning of this individual into a constructive part or a member of a society and a culture. Socialization is the process of being enculturated or being given a culture. It is the process of training this person into a human. And that's where Socrates comes in, that humans are born humans, but humans are not born humans, but they are made humans. The biological birth, we all receive it, but when it comes to socialization, there is a process that makes us socialize. To sociologists, it is a sociological birth. They call it a sociological birth, but I believe this is what Christians for all years, all generations have always been referring to as being born again. You were born biologically, but the sociological birth gives you a new birth. So what sociologists call socializations here, I think it's what Christians have called discipleship, but when you look deeply, it's what most of us have called education. Education is a process of socializing, is a process of making this person human. It begins with the first person we interact with, and it can continue on until when we die. So, the whole idea of being human is something that goes beyond biology. Being truly human goes beyond being a biological being. It is embracing certain human values, which in Africa we have always called Ubuntu. Ubuntu is that spirit or sense of being human. We've all had expressions like, he must have escaped from a zoo. I mean, looking at somebody and they're like, this can't be, it doesn't belong to the human community. In my local language, we say things like, Oyo naye muntu. Literally, it is asking a question, is he human? Yes, you're saying he's human. But what is it that makes you start to question whether he's human? There is something that you see that is missing, and that is given to us through this second birth of being socialized. And 1 Peter, those of you who don't mind reading the Bible, there is where 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 10, he talks about once you were not a people, meaning there is a time when we become a people. That's the time when we are socialized. So the big question is whether homeschooled or home-educated children are socialized. And the answer is homeschoolers are very much aware of the value of socialization and provide their children with opportunities to socialize, not only with their peers, but with all kinds of people in various settings, given the flexible nature of home education. They do this in homes and family-based activities, in church activities, co-op activities, community activities, gardening at home, when they are doing family businesses, when they are going about their sports in the communities. It's something that happens, and studies are there to show. One of the studies, Brian Ray is here in this conference, he did a study on 7,000 home-educated and now adult children. And some of the things they came up with were that, or they discovered were that 71 of home-educated children percent tend to be more community involved than 39% of their counterparts from other systems of education. The other one, they tend to be, when it comes to being members in the community, being members of associations and certain groups, 88% of home-educated children were found to be a part of associations and groups, unlike 59% of the rest. Then when it came to commitment to freedom of expression, 92% home-educated were found to have this commitment to freedoms of expression than 88% of their counterparts. So you're asking, are they socialized? Are homeschooled children better or less socialized? That could be one of the questions we may be asking. Do they even make friends? Do they know how to make friends? Yes, they enjoy making friends, talking with friends, and playing with them. The picture I identify there is a picture of my 6-year-old last year. We had gone to what is considered, even in Uganda, the remotest part of Uganda. But the moment we get in there, they just find themselves involved with the rest of the other kids they find in the community. And there they are playing soccer in the dust. It was like his first time to find himself playing soccer in the dust where there is no playfield. So yes, they are able to interact and find themselves in community with the rest of the other children. In others, there's no doubt home-educated children can be socialized just like the other kids can be, or in any case, even better. The point here is that, socially speaking, what makes us the human beings that we are supposed to be that can be productive in this society, the humans we all can enjoy living with, is not the biology, but it is this sociological birth or the process of socialization which happens in the place where you are being inculcated. So our question for all of us is, does that happen better in the school system or in a home community environment? Thank you very much.
Oh, yes, great. Hello, everybody. I hope you're enjoying this conference. I'm Mateja, and thank you. I come from Slovenia. I named this, or I gave my presentation the title, "We are more than social beings." And this is because I think maybe it's universal, but people in Slovenia are kind of obsessed with the question, what about socialization of home-educated children? And we hear it a lot. Also, I hear it a lot. Always, is this question followed by a statement or semi-question, like, we are social beings, aren't we? And I usually answer it in such a way that the conversation almost immediately stops, or the topic is changed. So I say, of course we are social beings, but we are also individual beings. And when people hear that, when they hear we are also individual beings, there is kind of recognition in their eyes, and they say, oh yes, I know what you mean. And then they change the topic. So there is no doubt about socialization of home-educated children, or at least of my children. So what do I mean about with this, this, how do you say, social being and individual being. So we are social beings because we cannot survive without others. The baby cannot survive without the mother. And we can also not be happy without other people, or most of the people cannot be happy alone. So we need interaction with environment. But then there are also processes in human psyche that happen only in our private, how can I say, a private space, within us. And the first one, the most basic one, and it concerns, or it's connected with our physical body, is sleep and rest. We cannot be healthy, physically not healthy, if we don't sleep and rest, but we also cannot be psychologically healthy if we do not sleep and rest. And the second level is emotional level. And I call this, I hope it's the same in English, that you feel through. You feel through all the impressions that you get through the day, all the experiences that you are just in your private space, in silence, and you feel what you experienced. And in such a way, you give it a place in your psyche, and then it does not sink in your subconscious, and then it comes out in the most inappropriate or awkward situations. But children also need that. Children also need just to feel what they experienced. And then we go to the mental level, and the mental level is reflection. We reflect on what we experience. And we cannot do all these things when we are interacting with other children or with other people. You can help your child to develop the reflection capability or skill by talking. We have at home, we have a ritual every evening before we go to bed. We talk about with the children what they experienced during the day, how they felt, what would they do differently, etc. And then this reflection starts to develop. And then we go even deeper. We have contemplation, when you combine the feeling and the mind, and then you're really deeply feeling and thinking. It's almost like meditation or something like that. And then we have creative thinking. We also, or our creative thoughts, they also come only when we are, in our private space, and not in this circle of interaction all the time, that our society is now, I don't know, it's obsessed with, there is so, and when I talk to people about this, they do recognize that, and they recognize in their children that they are all the time tired. And when children are tired, they become fussy and frustrated. And it's logical, because school is too demanding for their, unripe, or how can I say this, little minds and emotions. So I go, yeah. And why I am saying this is because this is crucial for development of social skills. I know in Slovenia, people and teachers and headmasters and all the experts are obsessed with these social skills. And there is some subconscious idea that social skills develop when children are playing with other children or being with other children. But in my view and my insight is this is not true. Children, the social skills are the result of psychological maturation. So when you are psychologically mature, you are also socialized. So, but this is whole other topic. I will not go into this because I don't have time. And I think we need to focus more on the psychological development of children, and then the social skills, they will just follow. They will just spontaneously develop together with mental skills, because if you don't have any mental skills, you cannot be socialized. Then you can be indoctrinated. You know, when you just internalize what comes from within, from without, and you don't think about it, you don't give it a place in you. You are just like, how do you say? Yes. You just go what other people or the values of society say that you have to do, and you have to behave, you have to think. So this is no socialization. And I will say something. I hope I will have time. When I was in Slovenia, when I was researching that was at the beginning of my homeschooling journey, I was researching socialization, and then I was looking for definition in Slovene. What is socialization? And literally in our dictionary of Slovene language, it says when one let go or abolishes or throws away, I don't know how to say, its own will, and internalizes the will of the society. This is literally, and then when I went to check the Dutch definition, because my husband is Dutch, so I also read and speak Dutch and everything, and there it is different. They say socialization is when the child or the person learns to somehow negotiate his or her own will with the will of the society. So that's better. It's not perfect, but it's better. The more perfect definition is definition that I think I read it it comes from Dr. Gordon Neufeld, a Canadian developmental psychologist, and he says something like that. It's not a literal quote, but a socialized person is one who is able to live in harmony with others while being true to himself. And I think this is the most important, that we help children to develop their own inner integrity and, of course, identity and integrity, and then help them to stick to that, not to make compromises, but at the same time also be able to live in harmony with other people. So I think this is the kind of update of socialization definition, I don't know, from what I know. So, and yes, I think this is the last thing, what I have. Yes, only that. Home education is a wonderful opportunity that we can give to children to develop not only psychologically but also social skills, because psychological maturation is, anyway, it's the basis for social skills. So thank you for your attention, and have a great day.
Hi, so my name is Juliet English. I live here in the UK, although I'm originally from South Africa. And some of what I have to say will overlap with what Godfrey and with what Mateja have said, but hopefully I'll bring you something a little new as well. So we made the decision to home educate 26 years ago, when our oldest daughter was about 7 or 8 years old. And the very last concern we had on our minds was whether she would have sufficient social exposure or not. Why is this? Let's think about it. Before schools were something that existed for the general public, how did children learn to interact? How did they learn to work with others and have conversations with others? Don't know, but somehow they managed. And I like to compare what we're trying to do maybe with a couple of 100 years ago with the model of family that we might have found. People like to use the word socialization, and I'm going to get into that a little bit like Godfrey did, and I'd like to see what that means, because I feel it's wrongly used. So the definition that is generally accepted in English as it refers to the process beginning during childhood by which individuals acquire the values, habits, and attitudes of a culture or society. But I like to liken it to the process, and to use your puppies, how do you train a puppy to be around people and to behave itself? You expose them to a variety of experiences in a safe manner. So that's what I believe socialization is. And if we go by this understanding, you'll find that actually most parents do this. They do it automatically as an extension of their parenting. Nobody has to tell them that they need to do it. They just do it. So what people actually mean when they use the term socialization is, how are your children socializing? What is their social interaction? Because they seem to feel this is vitally important, because there's an assumption that if your children are not in a group of children of the same age for several hours a day, they are deprived of the opportunity to be social with others. Some will even imply that your child will be likely to grow up weird, socially awkward, or shy, unable to hold a conversation or work with a group. So I don't like to use that word socialization, and that's actually why we call this topic socially speaking, because I don't like that term, really don't. So I'm going to use the term now, but please understand that I don't mean it the way others do. What I really mean is social interaction. That's the word I would use. Now, one of the things that's been a guide for me in terms of this area is, you may have come across the terms vertical socialization and horizontal socialization. And what do I mean by this? Vertical socialization is the ability to relate to and converse with people older and younger than themselves. Parents can facilitate a safe environment for the child to learn appropriate behavior and conversational skills in a variety of different social situations, as Godfrey said, with grandparents, in churches, in clubs, in the library, wherever you go. Horizontal socialization describes the social interaction that takes place between people of the same age, for instance, in a classroom situation. Nowhere in life after school you ever experience that. I've often observed that the school children I know battle to communicate with adults. There's a gap that they don't know how to bridge, and they may not know how to deal with young children unless they have younger siblings. But because of the nature of home education, where you may attend groups at different ages of children and adults who are actively engaged with the children, or you're regularly out about in the community, visiting shops, museums, or the library, for instance, or spending more time with adult family members, we find that home-educated children are often able to interact not only with children their own age, but also with people older and younger. Now, I have 7 children. I always used to say to people, actually, I'm not bothered about how they get on with everybody else. They need to get on with each other. If they can get on with each other, they'll be fine. And actually, we never won that battle. But I have a daughter, Leah, who's got the loveliest, gentle nature. And Leah, wherever she goes, she attracts the young children. They follow her, and they like to hang around her because she just brings something, and she has lots of time for them. My personal observation of my own young people going into college or university interviews is that they were well able to express their thoughts and passions articulately and speak to their interviewer with confidence. And judging by the reaction of these interviewers, they found this rare. They seemed unaccustomed to young people being so comfortable and engaged in conversation. So then we have to ask, the socialization people speak of within classroom situations, is that actually something we want to emulate and aspire to? Or can we, through home education, offer something that is actually more natural, more reflective of real life, and something that gives them the confidence and self-assurance they need to navigate the adult world as they get older? For many, school can be a hugely positive experience. It was for me. But I think we lived in a different time, perhaps. And children, I've noticed that where parents are still very, very engaged with their children, that's often the case, even if the children are in school. But there are children for whom this so-called socialization is not a positive thing. I'm not here to slam schools. But if people are being honest, There are behaviours to be found in classrooms and playgrounds which can be extremely negative and damaging, particularly today with extensive use of smartphones by children starting from as young as 8 years old, with things like cyberbullying and that kind of thing. And in respect of teenagers, you can say the peer group is important, and I would say it is if it's a positive, supportive peer group. But it can also be a very harmful environment during those vulnerable, self-conscious years, stuck between childhood and adulthood with limited input from caring adults. It's really a time in the young person's life when they should be learning to take responsibility, be kept busy and active, and encouraged in their interests as they begin considering their future as adults. The school system keeps them as children and treats them as if they are unable to think for themselves. Expectations are low and mediocrity is celebrated. Silly little reward systems are just another box-ticking exercise and a manipulative tool that children see right through. I found one of my children battled with conversations with her peers because she said to me, all they want to do is talk about sex and boys, whereas she wanted to talk about politics and religion. Home-educated young people pick up on how their parents behave and interact. If a parent demonstrates leadership, entrepreneurship, confidence, charitable work, generosity, and a good work ethic, it is very likely the child will emulate them just as they might any negative traits. And for me as a home educator, I've been learning right alongside my children and become excited by things I've learned, which then excites them too. We have a significant role to play in how we influence the course of our children's lives. The home provides the safe environment for them to make mistakes and to learn and to grow. And then I wanted to just give some examples of some of my children who have been in college and university, is that they've gone on to be elected to be student representatives or be chosen to be ambassadors where they are. And if you want to really see the proof of the pudding in home-educated young children, go and find some of the young people here at the Global Home Education Conference, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Go and have a conversation with them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to all of our speakers this afternoon. So now, yes, we will have some time for questions. If there is any question from the audience, come. Would you please, so please say your name and where do you come from, and then make your question and mention who do you want to answer your question, or if you don't care, anyone who asks.
Hi, my name is Tatiana. I'm originally from Ukraine, but now I live here. Thank you for all speakers for your speeches. It was very interesting to know your experience. And I would like to ask Alicia. I would like to ask you to remember yourself as a teenager, and I'm just wondering how, just to clarify, have you ever attended a school, like a public school, normal school? Does it work?
Yeah. All right. So I was in school only the 2 first years of my school years, and afterwards in the 9th grade, I think. Yeah, I was like 14. I asked my mom, well, I want to go back to school and see how it is. So I went in a public school for 2 weeks and tried how it is. And I liked the energy, and the school was really nice, but changing subject every 45 minutes and the stress level. And actually, I wasn't able to ask the questions I wanted to ask for the teachers and so on. So
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to hear, and just your experience of being teenager, because usually, normally teenagers don't think that their parents are cool, and they usually want to spend more time with their peers. So I wanted to ask if you experienced that, and if you would ask parents to go to peers and spend time with them or something like that. So thank you for your answer. If you would like to share more about this experience in school, maybe for a few minutes.
Yeah, well, alors, of course, I had some times where I more wanted to be with my friends than my parents, but I never had a relationship with my parents rejecting my parent away or feeling that they are too much or too forcing me to do stuff I didn't want to, or because I had the chance to have parents that when I didn't agree with them, they will take the time to explain why they're doing that and why they are thinking that's good for me or not good for me. So obviously I had times where I wanted to go out and only be with my friends, but I never had a bad relationship with my parents. So I don't know if that answered the question.
Thank you, Alicia. So anybody else? Do either of you want to make a remark about that same issue? No? Grown-ups? Parents in the table?
Actually, one of the things that happened in our family is because we allow our children a voice, they all like to express their opinions. We actually like each other, we all get on, and sometimes, I think as a parent, I'm not wanting to be a helicopter either, so we've kind of encouraged independence. But what I found is that now they think we live in a democracy, and they think they have a say in everything. And so I think maybe that's a disadvantage if they're not all thinking exactly like us. But I think that's what we need today, is we need independent thinkers, we need people who are willing to stand up for things, and that's what I have found, is that we've been able to help them cultivate their own opinions and views and defend their positions and that kind of thing.
So actually, I have a question for parents about it. Is since they're being brought up in different ways. I mean, in the case of Alicia, being brought up in different ways of the other children that were brought in traditional school. What outcomes do you see that are different, socially speaking, in the upbringing of your children? Just mention a couple like Juliet just did. How do you see your children different, socially speaking, from other children attending regular school?
Some of them, she mentioned them, the confidence they have. For me, even the first time I got exposed to homeschool children, I didn't have children of my own. I was not even married. But I trained as a school teacher. And then I'd interacted with school children. And then I was asked to go and speak at a camp. And then as I was on my way towards this camp, the organizer tells me, the children you're going to meet are all homeschool children. And that's the first time it drops in my ears. I'm like, homeschool children, okay. So I got to this camp. There were about maybe 30 or so children with a few of their parents who were facilitating the camp. I was very blown away by the way these kids were relating with each other, relating with the adults who were in their midst, but also relating to me, a stranger who had come to speak to them. These were teenage boys and teenage girls. One experience I remember is that this teenage boy, another younger girl, did something to someone else, and she was in like 50 meters ahead. And this young man is shouting to get the attention of the other younger girl, telling her, let me call her Joy. Joy, thank you very much. And Joy was acting shy, like she's not heard, and the boy insisted, "Joy, thank you very much." I was like, this teenager is so different from the teenagers I'm familiar with. How he's so out there to give a compliment to a colleague at such an age. Such and many other experiences I had with them in that camp for me were like, they have something different and I want it in case I'm to have a family.
Thank you.
I also see a difference in the motivation to learn things. And I can share a little story with you about my daughter who was not schooled. Actually, she was unschooled. But as a young adult, she wanted to go to college. And she was accepted into Chichester College for art and design. And they had, I remember, it's years ago, but I remember that she was so happy to be there, have the opportunity to be in these rooms and have all the facilities and so on. And they did a project in the town, and the whole class gathered there in the morning, and I think it was an old church or something. And they did their art project there, and then there was a lunch break. And nobody came back after the lunch break. All the other students vanished, and she was the only one who came back. And she couldn't understand that. And I told her, these other students may have been in school and they were forced to do things. You have never been forced. It was your choice to go to college. It's your choice to do this course. And she said, it's so cool. We have all these materials here. We have a specialist we can ask. We have space because we were traveling, so they grew up in a camper van. So having the space, a big table where they can work and do art was something for her. She was highly motivated. And she never understood why other people would just vanish and not come back to the class.
Thank you, Mateja. Mateja, do you have something to say?
Can I share a funny story?
Oh, yeah. I think we have one more minute.
We'd been home educating a few years, and my son I've got this son who had quite strong leadership qualities. He loved to boss people around, and he was about 8 years old. And we were living in South Africa, in Durban, which is quite English, and none of my children spoke Afrikaans, which is one of the other languages in South Africa. And we went to Pretoria, which is where Karen van Oostrom is from, and we joined a home educating event there, and pretty much everybody there spoke Afrikaans. Now, I'm fluent in Afrikaans. I had no problem, and my children didn't understand anything, and they were kind of hovering around me, except for my 8-year-old son. And I saw all these children, I saw him running, and I saw all these children running after him. And then and he was shouting and joyous, and he's running, and these kids are running after him. He was having a great old time leading this group, who were all Afrikaans. And afterwards I said to him, so, how did you manage to play? And these are all home-educated children, but he just was right in there. He said, no, he found he found a child who could translate for him. So he played with him, but he just gave the orders and he got his mate to translate for him. And there was no problem, was no barrier. And he just had that sort of confidence to go into this quite a strange situation for the first time. Which is one of those things that sticks in your mind, one of those little stories.
Thank you very much, Juliet. Okay, we are about to finish now, or a lot of time. So I want to try to bring us together to a couple of things that were mentioned today. Mateja said something very, very deep. She said that we reflect what we're experiencing. And as we all have these kind of stories, successful stories, I would say, about social development of home-educated children, we also need to do some reflection on this as leaders and families who are involved in advocating for home education. Because how are we fitting on purpose, supposedly on purpose, how are we fitting this personalization of the education in the global framework, the society our children live in? How are we helping them if they're not being socialized like other children, how is it that they're learning the social settlements? Because one thing that really is important is that when government officials ask families, home education families and leaders about socialization, they're really not asking, is your son or daughter friendly? Can he make friends or talk to younger and older children, which is mostly or by default answer. What they're actually asking is, does he know society rules? Can he be functional? So we ought to be intentional in those too. And we are. We have only not written that down. We have not analyzed how we do it. We need some philosophical work on that. So the acquirement of society values, shared values, this is something we need to discuss as a home education community, because there are things that we want our children to learn as acquired shared values, and others not. And this is one of the reasons why we're home educating them. So this is a field in which potentially we might face some conflict, and we need to discuss for the future so that we can retain our freedoms. So thank you, everyone. Apologies for not being able to finish this with a proper comment, but a challenge. Long-time leadership, bad habit. I'm sorry about that. But let me throw the challenge onto us, yes. Let's reflect about why do we choose what we choose to pass on to the next generations instead of just sitting and hoping for society to share everything with them. Thank you, everyone of you for being here. Alicia, that was very special, thank you. And thank you also. Good afternoon.